Hi folks, how are you doing? Let's see how the world champion played in the second round of this Norway 2014 tournament. Here he was black against Vladimir Kramnik. The game started with these Nimzo-Indian intentions by black, and it seems at least with black against 1d4, Carlsen have stopped looking and is going for the Nimzo-Indian defense almost always against the elite players. Kramnik plays his pet opening, the Catalan system, bishop check, and the dark squared bishops are exchanged. Now black plays d5, bishop g2, the pride of the Catalan opening, c6 reinforcing the center and playing in semi-Slav mode, knight f3, knight bd7, and both players castle. Now rook c1, white definitely wants to play on the queen side. With this bishop on g2, try to open up the center and have influence on the queen side. b6 to develop the bishop, either to b6, to b7, a6. And well, with this line particularly, Carlsen has been scoring quite well. This is not the first time he plays this against the elite players. He's played well with this line as black. Against Kramnik himself, against Topalov or the Chinese player Wang Yue. Now c takes, white now has an open file for his rook. And knight a3, still following the game. These both players, Kramnik versus Carlsen, played in Tata tournament 2011, when, by the way, Carlsen won that game with black pieces. And now Carlsen deviates from that game. Then in 2011, Carlsen played bishop b7, and the game went on with knight b5, a6, knight d6. The queen went to b8, queen b4, a5, queen a3, bishop a6, and as I said, Magnus went on to win that game. Yesterday he changed, he plays the very natural knight e4 move. Queen goes to e3, and bishop a6. Another move that looked very natural to me was maybe knight df6, but well, Carlsen chose another plan. He just puts pressure on this e2 pawn. Now knight d5, and obviously, well, attacking here e4, threatening to win a pawn, so Carlsen goes back with his knight. Now knight c2, with the idea maybe to try to go to c6, protected by the rook and the other knight. Jumping around, Carlsen takes, and Kramnik takes back with a pawn. If he takes with a queen, knight c4, attacking the queen, and black, it seems he's winning a pawn if he wants to. Queen e4, and now knight could take on b2. That's why Kramnik takes with the pawn back. Now knight c4 and queen d4, defending both pawns on e5 and b2. Queen e7, connecting rooks, developing the queen. b3, knight back to a5. And e4. Kramnik is trying to open up the position to make his bishop on g2 very useful and strong piece. D takes, and bishop takes. The rook on the corner is attacked, so rook a c8 is what Magnus played, and knight e3. Oh well, overall in this middle game, white has some space advantage in the center, and a little more active pieces, like the bishop or the queen. So white is slightly better, but nothing that much, I think. Bishop b7, just spotting the important, very well placed bishop on e4 and trying to exchange with his not that great bishop, which was on a6. Kramnik first takes on c8. Now he takes on after after rook d1, he takes the control of the d file, and Carlsen exchanges bishop. h6 gives the world champion some room for the king. b4, getting space on the queen side. Knight c6, a3, and Carlsen stops these pawns from advancing even more with b5 and king g2. White is playing in pure Kramnik style now, which nowadays also is certain about Carlsen style. Try to get microscopical edges and keep playing, keep pushing until the opponent makes a little mistake and then take advantage of that. Now White's edge is a little one, very little one, tiny, but he keeps playing. Both players are trying to make good moves and see who makes the first mistake. a5, trying to break up the pawn chain here, the pawn formation. Now rook c1 is pinning the knight. The rook on c8 is now would be hanging. Queen d7 to solve that, and pawns are exchanged here. Rooks go away as well. a4, b takes, queen takes. No more rooks, no more pawns on the queen side, and this is absolutely an equal position. But the players keep playing, and probably the most interesting part of the game is still to be played, as we will see right now. Queen b7 check, king h3, knight b3. Now Magnus has some ideas to go with the knight here to the king side, and the white king is a little tiny unsafe. So this probably gives black a little bit of initiative or something, very little. Knight c4, white has his own ideas of putting a knight on a strong d6 square. Now knight d4, knight d6, and the queen goes to d5. The pawn on e5 is under attack, so f4. As I said, this is quite equal, very equal, but black has the better side of the equality here, as white king is a little more unsafe than the black one. So this gives black some extra opportunities to try to create some initiative against white king. Knight e2, maybe with the idea to check on g1. Knight d4, queen d3, king g2 back, knight d4, attacking the f3 square. Kramnik gets away with it with the check on a8, and then putting the knight on f2, protecting with the queen the f3 square. Queen d2, queen e4 check, g6, queen d3, offering a queen exchange, which would more or less seal the draw. But Carlsen keeps playing, he loves keeping fighting. King f1, king g7, knight g4. Now this move gives black almost a tempi and a very slight edge, because with h5 the knight must go back either to f2 or to e3, as in this case. Now knight f3, and the white king is slightly weak. It's back on the back on the back rank. Now h2 is hanging, and both black pieces getting more or less around it. Well, thanks to his pieces, white king is not that vulnerable right now, but certainly could be in a better place. Knight f5 check is what Kramnik plays, going for the exchange of the knights. Carlsen takes with the e-pawn. More or less the same could happen with if he takes with the g-pawn. this is even more equal than taking with the e pawn. This is better for white because now queen takes, and if queen takes h2, for instance, even though white has a weak king, also the h5 pawn is weak, so mutual weaknesses, and these more or less should be equal. I don't think Kramnik would have problems to draw this. But Carlsen takes with the e pawn. Queen takes f3 and queen takes h2. So finally the world champion wins a pawn. And now, well, he will fight hard to try to convert his edge into a dangerous one. And basically we're gonna see Kramnik giving up more material to activate his queen, and to obviously try to go for a draw because it's not really realistic to fight for a victory here. He's going to give up more pawns to try to activate his queen and have activity against Carlsen's king. That's what he does with the e6 move. Now after f takes e6, the 7th rank of black is weak, so he goes with check on c3, h7, check on c7, king h6, and now queen e7. If queen g3, for instance, here, this is instantly a draw, thanks to a repetition of moves, perpetual checks. So Carlsen doesn't take that pawn, he goes to b2, covering this dark square diagonal. Queen g5 check now, repetition, and queen g7. Carlsen is not willing to give up queens and go into this dangerous pawn endgame with 2 pawns down. He just takes e6. I mean, Kramnik is not going to go into this endgame, sorry. Carlsen would love to do so. King h6, queen back to e8. Now after checks here, king goes to h3, and Carlsen goes back to f6. And this is now very, very equal. And Kramnik seals the deal with the very beautiful maneuver of the queen to c8, controlling this diagonal, anticipating black's h4, and facing that with beautiful g4 move. Now after f takes, he just takes with the queen, with the dominant queen in here controlling every threat, and just after g5, f takes, queen takes. This is obviously dead draw, and so they signed the score sheets and agreed to a draw, giving Carlsen the second consecutive draw in this classical tournament. Both Kramnik and Carlsen with 1 point out of 2. The tournament goes on. Let us see how they play in the third round. Thanks for watching.